Good day, fine people, and welcome to the Large Impact podcast, where I have the sheer pleasure and blessing to interview people who are making a large impact in their world and the lives of other people that they don't even know. And today I have an opportunity to speak with Lorraine Woodward, creator and CEO and just rockstar goddess of Becoming rentABLE, which works on having short-term rentals or STRs be accessible, and not just for those with physical disabilities, but also intellectual and invisible disabilities as well. So one thing that you find people don't know is that I was just at the Travelability conference, which is focuses on travel needs of people with physical and intellectual disabilities and how to support them and growing awareness. And Miss Lorraine was not there, but we were just kind of talking about how, kind of newbies to the mobility issues and other things is how ADA compliance, some businesses say, yeah, we're ADA compliant, but really what we learned at the conference is that those ADA compliance is like the bottom rung. Like that is just of generally anything. And Lorraine, with the short-term rentals,
you blew up and said, hold it.
Wait, so tell us, tell everyone about, we were like, well, ADA compliance, yeah, but it's only for.
That's right. There's this huge, it drives me crazy, Becky, because I'll see headlines and a name of a property that says ADA compliant, ADA accessible. Well, in the short-term rental industry, there is not a such thing as ADA compliant. When they created the ADA 31 years ago, short-term rentals did not exist. It was primarily, as we're looking in the travel and tourism area, it was hotels, lodging, and lodging might be bed and breakfast. It may be those properties that have more than 5 bedrooms. And so as the ADA has been modified in 2010, we still didn't get any recognition for what we need to go by, what standards in the ADA qualify for a short-term rental. So folks, if you see ADA accessible, compliant, there's not a such thing at all. Now, the one thing the ADA does have, it affects in our short-term rental industry, is the service dog element. So if a renter comes to you and says, we have no dogs, but we have a service dog, the law does say that is a working animal to provide independence and help to the person with the disability. They have to grant that service dog into their home, their short-term rental. Now, if somebody says, I have a support dog, or actually, you know what? A service animal is also a miniature horse. The law says a miniature horse. It's not just dogs. I want to see a miniature horse come to my short-term
rental. What about one of those Vietnamese potbelly pigs? Wouldn't that be?
If it has to be trained, it has to. There are six different types of service dogs. There's one for autism. They're the different kinds. That's another day for another subject. Anyway, if somebody says, but I have a support dog, that's not a trained working animal. And that's the key. So if somebody says, oh, no, I meant to say they're a service dog. And I would say, great, love to have it. Let's see your paperwork. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have paperwork. Yes, you do. If you are a working dog, then you have gone through training. You have to have that paperwork to put on that vest and to show a restaurant, a short-term rental, that this is a working dog or animal, and that you have to abide by the law, ADA.
So coming back to, so there's specific criteria for this accommodation, right? With this working animal or whatever.
Yes.
And, getting back to the original I guess, topic was that, short-term rentals with 5 bedrooms or more have a roadmap or, like rules
Yes,
that are still baseline, right? Still like you're just barely doing anything versus, but then we're getting now into, like you said, there's condos, there's smaller homes and everything else. So anything with 4 bedrooms or less, there's nothing.
there's nothing.
And so like,
So don't go by, and nobody should go by when they're looking for a short-term rental that says ADA,
but
because
what does that mean? Like
there's
I'm
not.
saying, you know what I mean? There's like all these other criteria, big deal. What exactly, like, what does that mean? And
Right. So it
so,
doesn't mean anything, but here's what does mean something. What means something are photographs on your gallery of features that you have that will make a difference in a family. It's the description and information that you put on your property that, people can read. I use a wheelchair. I have muscular dystrophy. My 2 boys have muscular dystrophy. So when we're looking for, or when we used to look for a vacation property, we would look at the photographs, but equally we would read what the description is, because sometimes the description might have more amenities included in it, and it may not have the photographs. And so we look at that. We started becoming rentable from a mobility standpoint, in that that's what our family's needs are. They're related to accessibility using a wheelchair. And we designed an accessible house that would meet the needs of our family and others, which has. So when I turned 60 and started this company, I knew the world of mobility. And that's, Becky, how you and I met, because it's like, oh, I can, eat, sleep, and drink this. It's my world. But we looked at what accessibility means in the short-term rental space, and it meant wheelchair access. It's like, wait a minute, we did this survey and we found out, wait a minute, a lot of people want to travel. It's not just people in wheelchairs like me. It's a lot more. And so we've broadened that scope. And so with that scope being broadened to be, mobility, cognitive, vision, and hearing and aging, we're looking at a lot of different aspects of what makes a property accessible. I think ADA will see another update. Maybe it might be 5 to 10 years down the road. And I think that short-term rentals will have been around long enough, and the expansion of what that means will change. In a way, I hope it will change, because it gives us a benchmark. Right now, the benchmark of accessibility, like you said, is way down here. And so everything else is better. We started out and looking at filters from that low lying fruit, but yet we include 43 filters on our website so that you have choices. And that's what we want.
I'm sorry. So you're talking about the filters.
Mm-hmm.
And accessibility, I had mentioned that at Travelability they are talking about people that are colorblind too. Like, like do, do you find, like, since you expanded, when you originally were talking about accessibility and it was more wheelchair users, and then you're like, wow, a lot of the accommodations or things that we suggest to short-term rental property owners actually benefit everyone. And there was a term you used, and I can't remember what that means, what that term was, where, like maybe universal
Design kind of plays in it, but
universal design. But like, so has your list of filters, like when you kind of whipped off your blinders and you're like, wow, accessibility for so many, like, do you find that your list of filters could just be like
like
crazy and
infinite.
nauseam? Like,
Yeah.
find you're having a hard time reining yourself in?
Yes and no. So right now we're specific on our website to mobility. Working with you in the expertise of autism, we'll start rolling out our cognitive friendly properties the end of this year, 2023, to the first of next year. And so each area of focus will have their own listing of filters. So right now we do. I mean, right now, Airbnb has 13 filters. Most companies have 2, wheelchair accessible and elevator. That's it. Okay, what does that mean, right? And so we do have the 43, but I think too, the key to 43 is not the number. It's really looking at giving the renter choices of finding out, I can't tell you what you need as well as you can't tell me what I need. Only I can do that for me and you can do that for you. And so that's when these choices are really important. Part of our job at becoming rentABLE is the idea of showing the cross benefit of what we're doing. I mean, we talked about in autism, having that little extra lock on the door. A lot of times they're less than $5 and they're that chain lock. But what that does is for roamers, it allows the caretakers, the family member, the mom and dad to go, wait a minute, Lorraine, you're not going out yet. Or why are we trying to go out? You're going to stay in. But that's also helpful for people with dementia. You know, it's helpful for young children, period. And so what we're looking at is how do we bring these elements of mobility accessibility into the lights of accessibility for our future different areas. We chose to look at aging as our last focus because it covers everything. It's the mobility, the vision, the hearing, the cognitive, you know, there you got it all. And so, and what are those important elements in cognitive autism friendly properties? That's where it's important for us that we get it right. We talk to experts like you to say, have we missed something? Are we including too much? Are we including too little? So that families can come with the idea that they are going to find a property that meets their needs. You know, does that backyard have a fence? Does that backyard have a locked gate, you know, and a fence? And so it's that type of information that we want, you know, property owners to go, oh, yeah, I have that. Never thought of that. Or I don't have a lock on the fence. That's really important. So I better go get a lock on the fence.
Right. So you had mentioned that, you know, you have muscular dystrophy, your kids have, your 2 boys, your 2 young
26 and 28-year-old
your men
I know
have muscular dystrophy, and that you stopped taking vacations because it just became too much. You know, the 3 wheelchairs, handicap accessible van, you know, everything else, not knowing that you would have the support or accommodations you might need, and exhausting for your husband who is not a wheelchair user.
Right.
So is that what, because then it sounds like then you decided you had to create your own place at the beach.
You know, it was that, you know, and also the help of my therapist, you know, because, you know, it was hard because, you know, first of all, that, you know, going to friends' houses, you know, the boys couldn't go down the street. I couldn't go down the street and have a cocktail, a cup of coffee, you know, go to a birthday party. It's not something that we could do in our own neighborhood because everybody has steps. The boys couldn't do it without Robert going with them and lifting them up the steps, you know, finding a way to get them into whatever. And that was hard. And then I really didn't think it would be that hard traveling. I mean, we did the Disney, we tried it 3 times, but again, and I didn't really understand it. I guess the aging process helps of why it was so hard on Robert. It's like, wait a minute, you can walk. That's easy. Not thinking, you know, I'm over here. Hey, Robert, hoist me off the toilet. And then the boys are in the other room going, Dad, I need help getting this. And then I'm like, Robert, I need to get up from the toilet. You know, it's this constant. And then there's the whole, we go to Disney and we're staying on their properties and we're taking a bus to go to whatever the kids want to do, but they only allow 2 wheelchairs. So that means 2 different buses. And that means 2 different arrivals. And that means 2 elements of our
like,
family.
how do you do it when there's 3 with wheelchairs and 1 with that? Like,
that's what you do. You divide and conquer. So that it was, you know, a lot of it is the emotional, you know, and I think that the kids were young enough that I don't think it got to them. it was really hard, without a doubt, the hardest on my husband. And it was hard on me because I wanted to help. I wanted to do that, but yet I'm the one going, hey, I need help. And then it's like, what do you mean 5 minutes? I got to sit on the bed for 5 minutes before I get up. I got to go pee, you know? And so,
Oh,
yeah, it was really hard. And so it was easier to stay home. And
right.
then, of course, I'm getting depressed. The kids are wanting to go do stuff. And when they graduated high school, it's like, you know what? Enough of this. We've got to do something. And so that's when it's like, all right, 3 hours away is the ocean. And it was interesting because the boy said, Mom, why are you building a beach house? Don't you know we can't get on the beach? You know, that made no sense to them at all. Well, you know, through working with town council, we have beach mats, you know, working with town staff. We have curb cuts everywhere. I never drive the van. I'm using my chair, scooting around everywhere. Now the boys are like, hey, Mom, when are we going to the beach? You know, that it is a place that brings them joy, you know, and just for me looking at the water, I don't have to get in the ocean. You know, I'm just a water girl. I just am like mesmerized by the water. But they just thought it was the oddest thing, that we were building a beach house, but it was important to leave our home, physically go somewhere. Now at 26 and 28, hey, Mom, can, you know, Michael and Jay and Fred and I go out to the beach? It's like, sure.
Pretty please, right? You know, that's
Yeah.
why we're here. You know,
Yeah.
that's why I built this. So yeah.
Mhm.
How did you and your husband meet?
Oh my gosh. So this is a good story. So I worked at a children's hospital in New Kent, Virginia, and it was a children's hospital for children that had duly diagnosed. And it would be like somebody with diabetes and a head injury. And historically, I know this growing up, you have this seesaw effect of taking care of yourself. You deal with one issue and then the other, but there was nowhere that dealt with them at the same time. So I was on the marketing team at Cumberland Hospital, and I lived in Williamsburg, went to Raleigh for a night out with my neighbor. We went to the tobacco company. We ate dinner upstairs, very, very lovely. Took the elevator down to the lounge, and that we played backgammon, my friend and I, and that she went to the bathroom, and there was a ton of people in this place, and I kind of got scooted out a little bit, and this man came up to me, now my husband, and said, hey, would you like to dance? Well, there were 3 steps to go down. Now again, muscular dystrophy is a progressive disease, so I wasn't in a wheelchair at that time. And so I go down these 3 steps, not very, very graceful. And my husband thought I was drunk, and he had been drinking, and he did this dance like a pogo, and I only could move my head back and forth. That was my dancing. And we hit heads. We laughed. Before we knew it, they were turning on the lights. My friend Mary Beth was looking around like, where is Lorraine? There were like 2 people on the dance floor. It was Robert and I. And she's like, Lorraine, you were on the dance floor. And I said, I know. I didn't know how to get off of the dance floor because I couldn't climb the steps. And so
You're just like, we're just hanging out. Yeah, me
just, you know, so like until Robert said stop, and then I'd ask him for help. Then so that's how we met. We dated and lived together for 5 years, and then got married. I say then we got legal, and now we've been married for 34 years.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. So, when did you become wheelchair dependent?
You know, I first used a cane. So I went and found these beautiful wooden canes that were hand painted. So it was like an accessory. And that was when I was in my late 20s. And then in my early 30s, I started using a walker. And then about 35, I started using a walker. Did I already say walker? Next was the scooter. Oh, I love my scooter because I would take any kid in any mall. Well, at the time you could, they'd come up to me and they would be asking questions, and I'd let them do the horn. And then I would ask the parent, go, can they just ride with me? And we'd zoom up to, you know, the ice cream place and zoom back, and they would go, "We," because I didn't want
Really
them to be
showing your
depressed.
age now, Mama. I remember those days.
I know, I
They were light
know.
and fluffy. I drank from the garden hose and
Yeah,
talked
I
to
know.
strangers and all that kind of type stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
That's what you do, yeah. But I didn't, my whole purpose was I didn't want little kids to be afraid,
Mhm.
of this wheelchair. And so I wanted them to touch it, feel it, see it, ring the bell, do all of these things, and then show how fun it is and explain that my legs are different than their legs. And it's like, how fast can you run? Well, look how fast I can go. And they're like, wow, amazed. And I said, you know what? Everybody wants to go shopping with Miss Lorraine. You know why? Why? I said, look at all the places I can carry bags. I can get 3 bags on this, 3 bags on this. We can put 2 bags in the back, and I still have room on my feet. And they would laugh. And so then, before I was 40, it was interesting. So I went into an electric wheelchair, but insurance wouldn't pay for it. They said, "Oh, you don't need it." I said, "But I physically can no longer get off of the scooter anymore." But this is why you go and do media relations, right? You go to the local press. And after about 9 months of fighting with Blue Cross Blue Shield, I did a TV interview. And wouldn't you know it, I was in the system. The next day, they granted my wheelchair. And so I've now been in a wheelchair for about 22 years. And it's really hard at each point in time in life when you have that change, going from walking with no support to the cane, and you're afraid to get to that next step, the walker. And then you get to the walker, you go, wow, I can put my purse on here. I can put some extra grocery bags on here. This is pretty cool. And then you get to the scooter and going, I don't want it. You fight it, and I fought this like crazy. But you know what? Well, again, I'm showing my age. I could go to the movie theaters, throw my feet up, enjoy watching a movie, laying back a little bit. Now my boys can too, because they have these fancy, movie theaters. So I'm not
Right,
special
right,
anymore.
right.
I'm trying to find that special side of me yet. And so, but it's a tool that allows me to go to the beach, to go get ice cream, to go play with my friends, to travel. And if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be doing those things. So it's now a point of gratification that I have for my chair versus not a positive thing.
Right. To a much lesser degree,
Okay.
I can kind of understand when you're saying you don't want to get to these certain stages. Like, I don't have full command of my right leg because of back issues and spinal blah, 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 blah. And you probably know that I did this crowdsourcing thing and I got an A-Linker, a walking bike, which has been a game changer. But I have to say, there's this part of me, I took it with me to Travelability, by the way. There's this part of me that didn't want it. You don't want to need those things. And I feel like at some point, I'm probably, Eileen's in the house because I lean to the right because I don't have full command of my leg. I'm going to need one of those pretty canes probably that you talk about, like, it's just like when you're sitting there at that certain place where you are in life and you're like, so like, just don't want it.
Mhm.
But the freedom to move, and like these amazing tools that are available to help your quality of life. Like really, it's just like I get all geeked out by it. Like I love the A-Linker. Sometimes I feel like a little bit of a goofball out there on it because it's so different. But
Right.
I like I said, to a much lesser degree, I understand. And then you were talking about how, the isolation, like even you couldn't even go down the street to a neighbor's house for a drink or something, which is interesting because there's similar isolation with autism, right? You can't just go anywhere. You can't just go to your neighbor's house who's having a 5-year-old birthday party or whatever. It's just, there's these things that are, what I'm finding interesting is these common threads of isolation and social stigma and all these things that really are keeping our families from enjoying the little things in life, a vacation, a movie, a night out, like what, like all these things. And that's what I think has driven both of us. You know, it's a calling. So now you've built this fabulous beach house and it's got a rental property and it's a place for you and your family to go also. And then through that, like you said, you educated the town as well. So that, you know, that this fabulous little ripple effect, but it didn't stop there, right? Because then
Well, and
you
again,
did, then you did it. So was the little yellow house come before becoming rentable?
oh, after.
Okay.
So, you know, with all the renters, I love my renters. I love my renters. I love them because they appreciate, you know, the value of this property because there's so few of them. And they they bring me gifts. You know, not only are they paying to stay there, they're bringing me gifts. Awesome.
As they
And
should.
I know it really is. So when we decided to create Becoming Rentable, we were going to be a TV show. That's what it was all about. And we did the survey, and one thing led to another. We've pivoted a lot. You know, this is owning your own business is not for the meek and mild. It is hard physically, emotionally, financially, looking at it all. And you keep doing what you can to achieve that goal. And for us, it's about creating a social change in how we look at accessible short-term rentals. And so in doing that, we did this survey and we found out, again, this broadness of accessibility and the importance of it. So we started looking at properties. So give me an example of mobility. Where's my autism friendly? Where is my vision and hearing friendly? Something for the aging. We couldn't find anything. So I hadn't been home in over 40 years because there was not a hotel or a place for our family to stay.
And home is
Conway, Arkansas,
okay.
Outside of Little Rock. So
Currently you reside in North Carolina?
I do, in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so that's where our home is, our family home. And so I bought a little bungalow, 900 square foot little bungalow, 1940s, sweet little thing. And we gutted it, worked with a builder 1,400 miles away, and we built this model property, or a fully accessible property for all the areas of focus. So we include elements for autism and our cognitive disabilities and vision and hearing. And so we have so it's a model working property. I'm happy to say it's really been rented a lot, and may it continue to get rented. But it really is one purpose is education. So I'll go to a local college and I will do a lecture, and then the students can go to the little yellow house, touch, feel, see it, and then take that knowledge with them when they graduate. And it's really important that we look at how do we educate this next generation.
So when you go to the colleges and you're talking about this educational experience, what classes? Is it like architect and builders? Is it special needs? Like who are you talking to?
So right now it's been predominantly OT, PT, sports medicine.
Okay.
I would love to go and look at hospitality. I think there's a lot of different educational programs out there. That's on my 2025, 26 roadmap.
Growing list. Yes, I know.
Of where we want to be. It is a squirrel, but it's an important one because, you know, we've got to educate not only those of us who need this now, but this next generation of understanding. And it's just like when I was working at Cumberland Hospital and I was traveling the central part of the country, marketing our services, and talking about basically manners and etiquette for doctors, because so many times growing up, you know, the doctors told my mom, I grew up with a single parent, that I would die by the time I'm 16, you know, and historically that is what happened back in the 60s and 70s, because doctors would say, Mary Ann, your daughter has muscular dystrophy, life expectancy is 16. So a lot of parents would go, oh my God, my child's 14 years old. I've got to start keeping them at home and protecting them. And they can't walk too much. They can't do this. And then all of a sudden their muscles weak, and lo and behold, the death did occur. And so it's like, no, you know, and we're not wheelchair bound people. There, this language alone and etiquette in the medical arena was not there. in the 80s. And so that was my job, part of my job about explaining and marketing Cumberland Hospital and this idea of duly diagnosed. There was a lot of education, and that's why I believe I'm living my purposeful life. All of the things that I've done have, equate to what I'm doing with becoming rentABLE and my experiences and knowledge, and the belief that we went to school, our kids went to school, what, to learn. And if they didn't learn, they wouldn't know. Well, the same is true about looking at accessible short-term rentals. And as the movie said, if you build it, they will come. If we tell them, hopefully they will come, and that more and more people can enjoy the benefits of travel.
It's true. I think it's really, social change, and you're certainly impacting that in a big way. So I want to go back to, did somebody really tell your mother that you weren't going to live past 16?
Oh, absolutely.
So then, and she was a single parent,
Mhm.
like first of all, how did you live past 16? What did she do to help you live past 16?
Well, my
right?
mom,
Like,
my
now
mom
you're
was like,
61, right?
yeah,
So what
right.
transpired to make you like this firecracker?
I don't know, but
You're not taking me down at 16. And in fact, we
you know,
reversed the numbers. You're at 61. So
that's
you're
right.
going, right?
Yeah.
So
So,
how did you get here?
my mom was determined that she would do everything that she could to help me. So we didn't travel, growing up. She couldn't afford it. So my summer vacations was a week at a hospital. It tended to be LSU or Vanderbilt, because those were the two researching hospitals. In fact, at Vanderbilt, they thought that, again, back in the day, it was muscular dystrophy. Then it was limb girdle muscular dystrophy. Now it's like you have limb girdle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then are you 1 through 50 in each one of these? I mean, it's so micro down to it. But at the time, in elementary school, I had limb girdle muscular dystrophy, and they thought, oh, it's a lack of beta carotene, so we're going to give you beta carotene. What's that from? Carrots. So what happens when you take a lot of? I turned orange. Still as weak as I was when I got there, but I left orange. So every year, my mom got me a 3-wheel bicycle so I could ride the bikes with my friends, and she pushed me every time. Some people today, social workers would come, but if I fell, my mom said, you have to find a way to get up. If that meant crawling across the street and crawling into the house to get to the couch, to crawl into the couch to get up, that's what I had to do. And so it was hard, but I learned to start that process of, what is the problem here? Well, I fell on the ground and I can't get up, and there wasn't that device yet, that said, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Clapper, help me, yes. Or what, I'm not the clapper, you're right. I've fallen and I
Yeah,
can't.
right. And
Sorry.
so
Clapper's
instead, you found a solution of how you were going to do it. So I knew to be careful on certain things. I knew not to bounce on my friend's bed, because we broke the bed because we were playing Barbies and we were excited, and that wasn't fun. So I learned, okay, maybe we won't bounce on a bed. So yeah, it was just, she kept trying. It's like, what do you want to do? So in middle school, I wanted to be like a lot of girls want to be. I wanted to be a cheerleader. Now, granted, I couldn't climb steps. I couldn't jump. I couldn't lift my hands up, but I could use my mouth. And so I was number 23 out of like 100 girls, and they had 25 like spots. And so I remember it's a whole week of tryouts. And again, I'm not doing anything the other girls are doing, but I am using this little tool right here. And so it's a Saturday.
Don't change.
They don't change.
I'm sorry, go.
They're calling the numbers, and it's 1, it's 79, and we're down to the last number, and my number hadn't called, and then they called 23. And they said, and it was called the Pep Squad. And they thought that I was a great example of what it meant to be in a Pep Squad. So middle school, I sat on the bleachers. The girls would go do their little activities. I'd cheer them on and did great things. And then it was high school. And now a bunch of my friends were being cheerleaders. Well, I want to be something too. So we were the Wampus Cats. and it's a 6-legged blue furry cat, 2 arms to fight with all your might, and 4 to run with the speed of light. So there had never been a mascot. So my mom made me this big paper mache head, and then we bought the fur. We used fishing line, so I would have 6 legs, 2 arms, and then 2 more arms. So when I clap like that, and then so I became the mascot for my school. We had to learn ice packs were important because I got really, really hot.
Mm.
We had to rig it whatever way. My senior year in high school, I thought I would go and join the cheerleaders and go out to the middle of the field with all of the guys, congratulating them on a win. So 2 cheerleaders went with me to take me on the stage. And wouldn't you know it, somebody from the other team was running. They threw their helmet up and hit me on the head, and I broke my first 3 vertebrae. And I ended up being in the hospital. We were out of town in a town called Russellville, Arkansas. And by the grace of God, they took a picture of me in the hospital with my mouth open. And that's the only way they could have seen those vertebrae. And that's my story. I don't know how, Becky, we got started on that story, but you asked me any question and I bet you I could come up with a story for you.
Of course. So it was about your mom and what she did. And
Yeah.
sounded
So I never have
really
stopped.
tough. How did you, because you learn from your parents, I guess, kind of how to be a parent, maybe. So like, how did those lessons translate to your sons? Like so not knowing a lot about muscular dystrophy, is it like something when they're born, it's identified as they have muscular dystrophy, or does it happen later?
Right. There are 42 different types. Like people say ALS, that's a form of muscular dystrophy.
Right.
Lou Gehrig's disease is a form of muscular dystrophy. Duchenne, there are different types. They happen at different stages in your life, and there's different degrees of weakness. So Nathan was one of those children that we called him the Hoover boy. He was 42 weeks in my belly. He was happy as can be. He did not want to come out. So we sucked that boy out of me at 42 weeks. I'm like, I'm done, get him out. And
Right.
so he was just, we were not surprised. We did a muscle a test when he was 3 years old, and he was diagnosed. When we did some genetic testing, they said 25% chance our children, if we had them, would have muscular dystrophy. There wasn't a lot back in the early 90s to learn from. And so Nathan was born, and then, oops, I'm pregnant again. And so Alexander and Nathan are 18 months apart. And Alexander was the opposite of Nathan. He was ready to come out. It was 3 months before he was due. And he's like, I'm out of here. And it's like, no, you're not. You are staying in here. And so he got out about a month early. He came out with a collapsed lung and a broken collarbone because he was ready. He was fighting. And yeah, he was. And we knew he did not have it. He was, he was strong. And we were really surprised. That's when I started my antidepressant. We couldn't believe both of them. And I kind of went with the same principle my mom did, in that, what do you want to do? Let's figure it out and let's do it. We had a nanny. I couldn't lift my children. I couldn't change their diapers. Some people would say, aren't you lucky? But it's an important part, and again, as a couple, to look at that. So I needed a lot of physical help, but there were things I could do, like cook dinner. I could do the laundry, I could work, there's a lot of things that I did, and I took care of the children, but I did a lot more as they got older. I was always the partier. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a birthday party and we're gonna do this and we do this, and great part, best birthday parties. That's for another show, another time.
I was just gonna ask.
And so I hope that the boys will have learned from me and can see you can do anything. You just have to figure it out. What is that one thing you want to do? But it is interesting. Nathan went to undergraduate school at SMU in Dallas. And in 4 years, he graduated with 3 degrees. Then he came back to North Carolina and went to NC State for 1 year and graduated with 2 master's degree. And now he's finishing his 6th degree as a PhD. And one of his motivations for all of this is, Mom, when people see me, I don't want them to think that I'm intellectually weak. And he said so many times, people who look at people that have mobility issues, they not only see their physical weakness, but they think they're mentally weak as well. That was a big surprise because I've never thought about that, but that has been a big part of Nathan's whole life, that he has strived to intellectually be the top of his class and to show himself and others that just because you're physically weak doesn't mean you're intellectually weak.
Well, not to mention, you know, between you and Robert, I mean, you know, like game changers, you know, like everything that you're doing are, I guess what they're doing is a testament to what you have done, not, you know, as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as a mom and a wife, you know, somebody who struggles with, you know, physical disability, you know, just like, I don't even say go down swinging because you're not going down. You
Oh,
know?
no.
It's just like, you're just getting
Hi,
started.
Becky. Really? But you know what's interesting? Alexander was my advocate. We would do educational classes in the elementary school, middle school. He was always there. Mom, I want to do with you. And Nathan's like, I don't think so. When they got to high school, they were both like, Mom, this is our high school. You don't need to be here. Alexander would still kind of get me roped into some educational programs, which I totally loved. And then college came and the two changed. Nathan became my advocate one, and Alexander didn't. Alexander's disease has been very, very progressive. And he's at a much different place than his brother, and at a different place than I ever was at his age. And so COVID was a good thing for our boys, particularly Alexander, because it did put him on an equal level. You know, Nathan was working on his PhD and he was working on a robotics class. And the professor said, we want to do an autonomous wheelchair, kind of like a Tesla wheelchair. And so Nathan called me, he said, Mom, do you have an extra electric wheelchair that you can donate to the school?
Have one laying around.
We did, and we do. So I said, would you like to go with me to deliver it? And he said, sure. And so the professor came out and I delivered it. And he goes, I had no idea that your son has a disability. I said, what do you mean? He said, we do all of the classes virtual. So I see Nathan from because I always wondered why he was so excited about this project. And he would work with the students. The professor's not in the lab working on this robotics effort. It's the students. And he said, you know, he was very surprised. And it was interesting because was he surprised that Nathan was so smart and had a physical disability? Was he, you know, how did that change his perspective on this student? I don't know. Nathan's gone on to deal with batteries and cells and doing really cool things. Because I asked him, I said, Nathan, where's the autonomous wheelchair? Because I want to ride that autonomous wheelchair.
Right.
And he goes, oh no, what happened to it? And so he's now into, he's doing a condo on the NC State campus. We've been working on this condo for like 4 years. Hopefully he'll be moving in soon, but he wants to do a accessible solar golf cart. So his office, his lab is 1 mile from his new condo. And then maybe have it also a bicycle component so that he could move his legs, but it be powered by solar and accessible for a wheelchair. Cool.
Very cool. Yeah, it's really fun. My kids are 18 and 20, both boys. And you know, now they're becoming young men, and you know that it's all about adulting, you know, and choices and, you know, like that kind of type thing, and kind of like laying the groundwork for them to do whatever fabulousness kind of things that your boys are doing. And it's been really, really fulfilling and really neat to appreciate them as young men, young adults, and individuals. You know,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that you're just busting at the seams with pride with those two. And you know, I commend you for everything that you and Robert have done to raise such fantastic servant leaders, I guess, for lack of a better word. You know, I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I want to talk about Robert for a minute. What is it that brings him joy, or you like to do with or for him, to make him happy? Because you know, he expends a lot of energy and time, and you know, and he loves you, and of course that's what husbands and fathers do. But what's like a special thing that, you know, how do you celebrate Robert?
Oh my gosh. So he's a foodie. Fortunately, I'm blessed with the three of them love to cook. I gave up cooking when I retired, quote unquote, in my 50s. Even though I didn't retire, I still gave up cooking. But they've taken it over. So when we make pizza, they make the bread, they make the sauce, they make the cheese.
You should
You
just
know,
come to our house. It's the same thing.
it's unbelievable. So good
Except I
food.
have to clean up the mess.
Oh, they do that too. They know that mama works and likes to work, and mama's happy if she's in her office. So they know after dinner, mama goes back in her office and the three of them clean. It's really kind of a nice bonding thing.
For sure.
So Robert loves good food. You know, he went dumpster diving for me at the beach. I needed some wood. And I said, Robert, there's a ton of stuff going on. Would you go dumpster diving with a friend? And he said yes, in his leather Italian shoes, in his linen shorts, in his Brooks Brothers top. And Lisa came over and said, where are you going? He goes, aren't we dumpster diving? My husband doesn't know what dumpster diving is. You know, he doesn't, he dresses really, really well. You know, and people tease me, Lorraine, what's the difference between your painting dresses and your go out dresses? The difference is there's not paint on them. But right now I go out with paint. In fact, this dress that I have on right now has paint on it because that's what I do. And so, you know, buying Robert clothes that I wouldn't buy at all, but he loves his clothes. He looks good and he likes to look good and he feels good about himself. He loves the yard, you know, so giving him time every weekend, he's playing in the yard. It's giving him quote unquote permission, not that I do, to go to the nursery because he will buy a carload, a van full. I mean, unfortunately, I have a wheelchair accessible van, and that means there are 2 less seats in the van. And so that means there's more plants in the van. And then, you know, he loves the yard.
Vegetable garden?
We do. We have vegetables in the front yard. We call it was part of the Victory Garden phase back in the 40s and 50s,
Yeah.
where you do your gardens and people share it. So he wanted to mix in vegetation with the landscape of our house. And I love it. The boys love it. We have, oh my gosh, the best tomatoes, you know, jalapenos, peppers, zucchini. It's delicious. All of our herbs. And so he really enjoys that a lot. Nathan, being the techie, Robert and I were at the beach a few weeks ago, and the boys were responsible for making sure that the vegetation got watered. So Nathan went out, as Nathan would do, and bought a device that he put on the water hose, or had a neighbor come and do it. And now by an app on his phone, he can turn on the water and right there, and the water will come out. He didn't have to go anywhere. He just holds it, it will water. He turns off his app and the water shut off. And so he can, I know, $40. It's the coolest thing. So Robert's like, well, that's a waste. Well, Robert was watering the other night. And he goes, Lorraine, this app is so cool. I have to go to the side of the house, you know?
That's ridiculous. I
Yeah.
walked
And
uphill
so
both ways to school. Yeah, what do you mean there's an app for that? That's ridiculous.
you know, and we love music. Our family does, you know. We have speakers in the kitchen, and every night Alexandra will play different music, and we have to guess who the artist is, what genre it is, when was it, you know, is this the original or whatever. And so concerts, going to live events, music's a big part of in theater that we really all enjoy. So it's doing those kinds of things. So Yeah, that's what, and he likes his alone time, which
doesn't,
is
right?
really great for me because I will go to the beach. I used to spend every summer there. And it gave him time with the boys, time to be alone. And then when he's ready to see me, he'd go to the beach and see me. A couple of days, he got his fix, and he'd come back.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was
Bye.
a great thing for our marriage. I tell you, if everybody could have two houses, it's a good thing. And it's just respecting him and supporting him. He and I are very different in our work and experiences, and he gets bored. I get motivated. I'm up for, all right, we got to tweak this. How am I going to tweak it to make it work? And he gets bored and ready for that next task. And so it's respecting and supporting that. And it's a lot of work, and so it's a lot of work, but the end result is I grew up with a single parent. Robert grew up in a divorced family, and our boys have not.
Yeah,
It's
it's
been a conscious effort.
right, even with and it's not easy, with the disability. The divorce rate among autism parents is like 80 or 90%. Like, it's crazy. And you can kind of understand. And had we not relocated from New Jersey 11 years ago down to South Carolina, we're pretty certain that our family wouldn't be intact. So we arrived in Surfside Beach, South Carolina on Easter Sunday, 2012, and we call it our family's resurrection. And it's not lost on us, right? Because it really truly was. So we're blessed, and blessed by everything that you're doing. Is there there's one stat real quick, because I know we probably have to go. We could do this all day.
We could.
You were talking about the moving the needle right now, right? When you're talking about short-term rentals, how many there are in the country, how many short-term rentals, and then how many are accessible, for lack of a better word, because I don't want to say ADA accessible. Just
Yeah, they're not
flip on
ADA.
that for just a moment.
That's right. Get that word out. It's amazing. Just in the United States, there's over 1.3 million properties, short-term rental properties. And of
And that
that,
can be from 1 to 5 bedrooms, 1 to plus bedrooms. When you
oh,
say
it can be
short-term
36 bedrooms, right?
rental,
But just the short-term rental industry, and that's and the distinction is how many nights you stay. So
okay,
short-term is 30 days or less.
okay,
It's that sector of our travel. And so there's 1.3 million, but what are accessible today is 0.01 are accessible. That's 1,300 properties are accessible out of 1.3 million properties. It's horrifying. And even Becky, and you know this because we've been working together, what's even kind of sadder for me is the area of autism and cognitive homes. There was a group out of Florida who had like 10 autism friendly homes, and they're no longer identified as autism friendly homes. There really are maybe 10 that we know of in the United States that are autism friendly homes. And that's why we teamed up to do an educational program that is providing information about what this looks like, how to make this accommodation, get this information out so that we will have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 20,000, autism friendly homes. And that's how we're going to see moving that needle. And it's not moving the needle by becoming rentable, but it's partnerships like with you all that are making that change. And it's the partners that you went and talked to at Travel Abilities Conference. It's really working together, and I think is really key in moving that needle and showing the importance in a particular population, but also how many others it benefits.
yeah. And I really love how much you have, I guess, learned probably more about the ADA laws and rules, and and just the incredible amount of information that you have had to amass and consume, and I don't want to say intellectualize because that's not the right word, but really kind of put into practice. And like you were talking about how the business, how many pivots we've had to make, you know, with everything that we're trying to do, you know, like people say no, we're like, yes, it can happen. We're going to make this happen. And I just commend you for everything you're doing now. Cause like now you've got this amazing platform, this amazing business idea. And then like the world's biggest travel giants, Expedia and Vrbo, saying, you got something special. And
I
you
know.
are special, and you're a rock star, and you're making a large impact. And so thank you for all of your efforts. And thank you for spending some time with me and sharing about you and your fabulous, dynamic, wonderful, smart, talented family. And I look forward to continuing to play with you.
We are in the sandbox together.
Yes, we are. Let's go play.